What's up, Unlocking Your Inner Strength listeners? How would you like to know how to use a timer app correctly and how long it should be set for to keep your creative powers at peak force? Well, I have good news for you. I've put together a special report showing you how to do this. Normally it's $45, but since you're a loyal listener of the show, you can get it for only $10 at unlockingyourinnerstrength.com/time.
You're listening to the Inner Strength Show. If you want to step into your greatness, you've come to the right place. Here is your host, the human strength expert, Kyle Newell.
Hello, everybody. Great day to you once again. Back for episode number 36 of Unlocking Your Inner Strength. This is Kyle from unlockingyourinnerstrength.com. I have some really cool stuff going on with Unlocking Your Inner Strength, including the subscription newsletter, which people are getting. And I'm going to keep adding really neat stuff to each mailing of that. You can find out more about that on the website. Last week, we went over the Newell Strength Training Principles and how I arrived at them. As a natural offshoot to that, today we're going to go over the Newell Strength Nutrition Principles and how I developed them and came to know them. In 2014, a few months after I competed in 2 bodybuilding shows, Devin and I and Martina, we did not have Dax at the time, were on the way down to the Outer Banks to spend a week down there for vacation with family and friends. We left on a Saturday morning. It was my birthday, August 10th. And upon waking up, we packed the car, stopped at the Dunkin' Donuts, got some coffees, and I got a dozen full-size donuts, mainly the glazed kind, the one that are super high in calories. And I proceeded to finish them before we even got to the next town. Within the next hour after that, I ate a whole bag of Butterfingers bites, which are great when you put them in the freezer, by the way. And then an hour after that, I ate a quart of rice pudding that Devin had made for me. We stopped at a Waffle House in Virginia Beach, which was a couple hours after that. So now that places us around noon. We went inside, just the two of us, sat at the bar, and I proceeded to order. Now, if you've never had a Waffle House waffle, let me tell you something. They're incredibly and extremely filling. They're very good, but they are filling. One waffle is a task for most people. So they ask us what we want to order. Devin orders first. Then I ordered some eggs and 3 peanut butter waffles. The lady did a double take, actually wrote down the wrong order because her mind was kind of baffled by that. And she said, I'm sorry. You wanted peanut butter? I said, yeah. She goes, I wrote down chocolate chip. I thought you had said 3. And her coworker next to her said, he did say 3. I said, he's right. I did say 3. She said, honey, are you sure about that? I said, I'm sure I can do it. And I gave a chuckle. Now, at this point, they're kind of talking back there. We're sitting right there. They're talking behind the counter. Oh, he's going to try to eat 3 of these, and on and on and on. Of course, Devin begins to tell the people next to us. I was chatting to a father and a son about training because they saw I had a Rutgers football shirt on and started asking me questions. Devin starts telling them and the workers that it happens to be my birthday. And if you know me at all, I do not like public attention. So you see where this is kind of heading. The waffles come out. I eat my eggs first. Protein actually means of first importance, which we'll get into. And then I'm sitting there. Keep in mind what I already ate that morning. So you know what? I think I'm going to get 2 more. I called the waitress over. Said, ma'am, I'd like to order 2 more. She starts going crazy, laughing. You've got to be joking. There's no way. No, I said, I'll take 2 more, please. Now there's a commotion behind the counter. And it's causing a scene, which I'm not particularly fond of because, again, I don't like that public attention. I try to stay humble, stay quiet. Waffles come out. And I proceed to eat them. Next thing you know, the manager's coming out. Sir, if you eat 2 more, I'm buying your meal. I'm buying your wife's meal. And I'm going to give you a hat. Devin and I laughed. I looked at her and I said, we still have a couple hours to drive. I've already eaten about 8,000 calories today. I don't know if I want to go into a food coma, which again, I'll explain in a little bit what that is. So I said, let me think about it. And wisely, I said, you know what? We'll take the bill. I could do it, but I'm not going to. The manager still proceeded to give me a hat, and we have that picture. It's actually up on Facebook. So I have a Waffle House official hat. We got back in the truck, began driving, and when we arrived, I ate a whole bunch of more food for my birthday. You may be thinking, how in God's name was Kyle able to eat that much food? That's one particular incident. I have many others, and I'm going to proceed to tell you how I can eat like that from time to time. If you look at how I developed my nutrition principles, it's come full circle. Back in 1997, when I first got into lifting, so we're talking about 20 years ago now, I was in high school. My whole approach was to eat as much as I possibly could. I wanted to put on size. I was skinny. I was 155 pounds, let's say, give or take. My friend, Popzilla, who was a grade older than me, and I would go to Burger King after we lifted, and I would get 2 triple cheeseburgers. At the time, Burger King had these charts up which gave all the macronutrients of all their food. And all I can remember thinking was, man, a triple cheeseburger has 70 grams of protein. This is awesome, and it tastes good. I did that pretty much the whole summer, and then into the next fall. Well, over the next year and a half, I put on 50 pounds of solid weight. By the time I graduated high school, I was 210 pounds, and I was lean. My approach was working. It was so simple, or so I thought. When I went to college, I continued on the same path, and I even upped it more. I wanted to be the biggest dude on campus at the University of Delaware. Well, I can say I was definitely one of the biggest guys around down there. And some other time, I'll tell you some stories from my fraternity about some scuffles and facing off against some of the other meatheads from other frats. But my approach was starting to catch up with me, meaning I was starting to put on a lot of body fat. That is the only time in my life that I cracked 260 pounds. And when you look back at pictures, they're shocking. I was heavy. I had to re-examine this approach of calories in, calories out. You want to put on size, increase your food. There had to be more to it. I earned such a reputation down at Delaware that when I was pledging my fraternity, one of the contingents to allow me freedom was that I was allowed to work out every day. They wanted me to be big, and I was allowed to eat whenever I wanted to, which my pledge brothers were okay with, even though that was not what they were allowed to do. What's up, Unlocking Your Inner Strength listeners? How would you like to know how to use a timer app correctly and how long it should be set for to keep your creative powers at peak force? Well, I have good news for you. I put together a special report showing you how to do this. Normally it's $45, but since you're a loyal listener of the show, you can get it for only $10 at unlockingyourinnerstrength.com/time. By my junior year of college, and that's actually when I had my first girlfriend ever, I realized I have to make a change. I do not want to be chunky monkey. Before I went on my spring break to Cancun that year, I decided to diet down. I put that in air quotations because I hate the word diet. However, I did get lean, but I still love to eat. So I started toying with this concept of free days and cheat days. And I started to develop a theory that one could have a day of higher calories and it would impact the body and metabolism positively. I really began to monitor what I was eating as far as making sure it was quality food. By the time my senior year comes around, I take this theory I've developed about cheat days. At the time, I'd never heard anybody else ever talk about this type of stuff. Anyhow, I bring that theory to one of my college professors, a PhD in nutrition, set up an appointment with him, present the science and my experience with what I was doing. And this guy looked at me like I had 5 heads. And he said, I don't know. This doesn't make sense. Why would you want to do this? I wasted about 5 minutes with him. And I said, all right, thank you for your time. Because I knew he was stuck. He couldn't get past his basic level of thinking. His PhD mind held him up. I continued with this cheat day approach for the next 4 to 5 years, at which time I came across Scott Abel, who you may remember from the last episode. One of the things I was so hooked on before learning about his mental and spiritual approach to life and training as well was that he had this DVD, and it was called The Cycle Diet. And it seemed to explain in further scientific terms what I was talking about with cheat days. I ordered that thing so quick on one of my lunch breaks from when I was teaching. I watched it probably 40 times. And then I hired Scott. I employed cheat days for the next 2 contests that I did all the way through the contest. Meaning when most people do a bodybuilding show, like when I did my first few, I was strict. I was a Spartan. I starved myself. These cheat days worked though. They helped to make me leaner. I was programming my body and realizing that you can't get fat in a day. And there is actually a physiological and metabolic need to refeeding the body after you've been dieting for a certain amount of time. Cheat days became a normal part of my life. A couple years later, I came across John Meadows, who coached me for 3 years. John's whole approach to nutrition was very interesting because John had his intestine removed from a rare disease he had. It wasn't Crohn's disease, but something of the sort. And he was a very high-level bodybuilder. In fact, he still is. John taught me the importance of not macronutrients, meaning calories and carbs and fats and proteins, but micronutrients. What's actually in the food you're eating? John taught me the importance of it's what your food has eaten. So you want to eat food that has eaten its proper food source. For example, when cows eat grains, cows cannot digest grains. They get nasty ulcers and liver infections and are pumped full of medications. Get those cows as fat as you can before you slaughter them. Well, these toxins from the grains and the medications are stored in their fat cells. When we eat that type of meat, those toxins become stored in our fat cells. It made me very aware of the fact that when we're eating food, if it's a fatty food or a fat source, they hold a lot more toxins. And that's kind of a protective mechanism for the cells of the body, store the toxins, protect the rest of the body. But I continued to modify my approach. So now I had a cycle diet, meaning where I would diet hard for a portion of the week, most of the week. And then I'd have my cheat day or free day. And it was common for me to put on 15 to 20 pounds overnight with a cheat day when I was in super compensation mode. Now, super compensation mode is when you're so depleted with your muscles as far as intramuscular fats and glycogen. Glycogen is the combination of water and carbohydrates within the muscles that when you have a super high calorie day or free day, the muscles are like sponges. You send signals to the nervous system to keep producing testosterone and growth hormone, IGF-1, thyroid. And your capacity to eat goes way up the leaner that you get, the leaner that you become. So we have cyclical dieting, the quality of the food you eat, the micronutrition. And finally, when I was getting ready for my last contest, 2014, before the Waffle House incident, I started rereading Lyle McDonald stuff. Lyle McDonald, I think, is a brilliant mind in the field. And I've always respected his fat loss approaches. Again, these were extreme. Some forms of a cycle diet. A cycle diet is definitely not for everybody. The thing that interested me the most, though, was he talked about fasting. At that point, all I wanted to do was lose the last little bits of fat I had, the stubborn fat, so to say. Well, you can't fast for days on end. You can, but that's not really good for performance and whatnot. He talked about intermittent fasting, which was periodic fasting, and how that actually increased the blood flow to the stubborn fat areas. So stubborn fat areas for men are typically the lower abdomen and the love handles. For women, it's typically the thighs and the glutes. Well, if you ever touch those areas, they're usually colder to the touch. That's because the blood supply to those areas is poor. Now, if you can't get blood supply into those areas, it's much harder to get the fat out. But fasting was one way to increase the blood flow to those areas. And it's a different type of fat cell receptor as well, which is very resistant to fat loss efforts. At the time, I was probably 8 weeks out from my first contest of that summer. I took what I was eating. I was eating 4 small meals a day, about 1,700 calories a day, that's low for a guy my size. And I split them into 2 meals. So I was eating the same amount of calories, let's say 1,600, and I was having them within 2 meals. First thing I noticed, my hunger became much more manageable, even though I was eating the same amount of food. I backed up the first meal, so it was 16 hours after the last meal, which meant if I ate at 8 p.m., my first meal the next day would be 12 noon, and I would just eat 2 meals a day. By allowing the body to go this extra period of fasting, growth hormone would spike as cortisol rose, and that would modify the body composition. I also found that it was much easier on my digestive system, much better for digestive health as far as not needing digestive enzymes anymore. And it also makes you more insulin sensitive. When you're in a fasted state, especially when you're in a super compensation state as well. Calorie partitioning shifts in your favor, meaning where's that food going to go that you eat? Is it going to go to fat cell or fat storage or to the muscular system? Well, the average person, it's maybe a 50-50 split. We want it to go more to the muscular system. If you're more insulin sensitive, that's going to happen. And that's how I arrive full circle. There's a big emotional piece to this as well, in that I do no longer measure my food. I have systems for eating. I eat twice a day. I believe in intermittent fasting. I believe in the quality of the food I'm eating. Currently, I don't do a cycle diet, but I do have free meals, typically on the weekends. And the reason I don't do the cycle diet is just because I'm not lean enough to really need that or feel like I even need it. I cannot eat like that right now. I just don't have the appetite. Now in the summer, I'm sure I'll play around and do a 6-week mini contest prep before one of our vacations, at which point I'll employ that again. The point, though, I want you to see is how I evolved from calorie counting to cheat days, cycle diets, micronutrition, intermittent fasting. I keep adding elements in, and these are systems for my nutrition. And I firmly and wholeheartedly believe in these. My health is great. My energy is great. I don't obsess over food anymore. And that's a huge part because I no longer struggle with body image issues. But those are the principles. Micronutrition, periods of higher food intake, depending on who you are, intermittent fasting. Now, micronutrition really focus on the quality of the food that you're eating. The last point I'd like to add is that of it's not what you eat as much as who you are when you eat it. Don't eat in a rush state or a stress state or in an environment in which you're uncomfortable. You'll be in the wrong part of your nervous system. You have to be parasympathetic, which is rest, digest, and relax when you eat. Most people function in a sympathetic state, which is freeze, flight, or fight. So there you have it. Those are my principles for nutrition. And if you employ them, they'll work for you. And that's after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on education and coaching and 20 years of experience. So take it or leave it. I want to thank you for listening to episode number 36. Please keep spreading the word about the podcast. If you have not left a review yet, please do so. I can see who left a review. So I know if you didn't leave a review, then you're listening. So just do me that favor. And I won't hold it against you either way. Check out the site when you get a chance. Get on the email list, and I'll be back next week. We'll be going over body language. Peace, everyone.
You've been listening to The Inner Strength Show. If you enjoyed the show, remember to subscribe, rate, and review us in iTunes.